So emergency vehicles and tow trucks. You might find yourself driving and you come across an emergency vehicle or tow trucks. There's a car broke down and a tow truck needs to come and tow them. So what do? Most situations when there are emergency vehicles on the road, they are either assisting other vehicles or there's a collision. They're trying to move damaged vehicles off of the road. So they need space to do their work. So in those situations, there's usually where the lane is getting lost or traffic has to go into one lane or it's being obstructed in some way. So some examples of these are traffic collisions, disabled vehicles, even spilled cargo. Sometimes heavy hauling trucks can, if it's windy outside, they could tip over and have cargo being spilled. So those are really dangerous situations, and you got to be mindful if this is happening. Also, even if there's just regular highway maintenance or construction going on, this is how you would behave, or this is how you handle those situations. You might see this sign and it says slow down, give us room to work. There could be flashing red or yellow lights. There could be police on the scene. So if you see any of that, be prepared to slow down and even stop potentially, and look for who is directing traffic. Because even if the road you drove on was fine that morning, and if there's an emergency situation, something could be happening. They could be directing traffic elsewhere. They could actually have the road completely shut down. So you have to find an alternate route. So you got to pay attention to how the situation has changed, and if there's police on the scene directing people, if there's signs telling you to go a different direction. Those are all things that could potentially happen. So the reason why you need to pay really close attention to these things is to avoid the possibility of getting into another collision or causing another collision while they're trying to clean up the first collision. So they're called secondary crashes, and they actually are more common than you think, and they're caused by people trying to look at the accident. So if two vehicles are crashed, naturally we're very curious and we want to go see what happened, right? But if you're doing that, you're looking at the collision while your vehicle's moving, and then you bump into the vehicle and ahead of you. Now you've just caused another accident in the free lane, and now you're causing more headache for everyone else. So you try not to be nosy, try not to look at the situation, and if you absolutely have to, make sure that your vehicle's stopped and that you're safe and that you're paying attention to the road still. You do need to be responsible for yourself as a driver still. And then typical vehicles that are usually responding to accidents are police vehicles, ambulances, fire trucks, tow trucks, all that kind of stuff, which I mentioned. So if you see any of these vehicles, you're driving along and say you haven't even got to the scene of the collision yet, but there's emergency vehicles trying to get past you. This is what you do. They have the right of way over you, and you got to pull over to the side of the road. So here's just a little quick video to show you. If you ever you hear sirens, you see flashing lights, you see emergency vehicles, you see a fire truck, here's how you respond. They do have to have their lights on though, or their sirens. Like, not if you're just driving beside a cop car, you wouldn't just pull over out of nowhere, right? This is when they are in those emergency situations and they have their lights activated. So that's how you handle a situation if you're ever hear sirens or see lights. You may also see this light. So this sign, here's another sign that's good to memorize. And what it says here is that the maximum speed limit for emergency vehicles. So you can see there's a vehicle with their lights activated. If you are passing a vehicle on a primary highway, so typically on a highway, it's 100 kilometers an hour, the speed limit. This is telling you that the maximum speed limit, regardless of what it says or what the speed limit is posted, if there is an emergency vehicle, you need to slow down to 60 kilometers per hour minimum. It could actually be a lot. There could be heavy traffic, or there could be slow moving traffic, so you may be going slower than this, but maximum you cannot go over 60 kilometers per hour when there's emergency vehicles present. and that's for safety of everybody. It also says here that the speed fines double. So that's an important key factor. If that speed fine was typically 150 in regular conditions, but you just zoom by a cop who's got his lights on and you're doing over 60, that $150 ticket is now $300 ticket. So that's important to understand as well. That also applies to construction workers. If there's construction workers present and they're currently working on that construction site, and if you are not abiding by the speed limits of that construction zone, then those speed fines double as well. So that very well could be on your quiz. The other thing too is you cannot travel behind it. So say an ambulance or an emergency vehicle passes you, you pull over, and then you pull out quickly and start following them because you're like, hey, I'm gonna get through this traffic jam quick. I'm gonna go right through them. You have to actually stay 150 kilometers behind any emergency vehicle. So exercise caution, slow down, leave lots of space, let those emergency vehicles go through if they have to, or just get through the collision or the emergency situation slowly and be patient. And then after you've passed that vehicle or after you've left the construction zone or the emergency zone, then you can resume up to the regular speed limit. But that's another kind of rule of 5, 150 meters, which is quite a big distance. You can't follow too closely behind those emergency vehicles. Give them room to work and move past it, right? And don't gawk at it. Don't spend all your attention looking at it, because that can cause more collisions down the road. Okay, we're almost done this chapter. The last one that we want to talk about, we've done raining, we've done nighttime driving, we've done ice, and the other one that can reduce your visibility is fog or smoke. So when you're driving through smoke or fog, this is where you want to use your low beams. So at night, you want to use your high beams as much as possible and switch down to low beams just if you're passing other vehicles so you're not blinding them. But in general, nighttime driving, you want high beams. If you're in smoke and fog, the smoke and fog could be happening at night or during the day. So even though it's bright out, you wouldn't necessarily think of having your headlights on. But if you can't see through the heavy, thick smoke and fog, you can still see it's bright out, but you can't see far enough ahead of you because of the smoke. You put on your low beams. And the reason you do that is because your low beams are pointed towards the pavement so that you'll be able to see a little bit in front. It'll illuminate and light up a little bit in front of you, enough to see. But if you put on your high beams, it'll actually reflect back at you, and it makes the vision and your visibility even worse. So if you can't see well enough ahead to drive, even if it gets really heavy, I know a few years ago when we were having the fires out in Slave Lake, it was creating a lot of heavy smoke, so much that you couldn't even drive safely, couldn't even see 2 feet in front of you on the road. So in those situations, either slow down or just move over, like just pull off, either wait for it to go or don't travel in those situations. So here's a video to show a bit about what I'm saying visually and how to use high beams and low beams in situations.